xUnit 3 allows you to skip tests and provides a new test context. Let's see how we skip tests. To skip this test method, we can use the Assert.Skip, which is new to xUnit 3, and we can provide a message as to why the test is being skipped. So we're going to specify that the test is no longer needed. When we run the test, we get this warning and with the error message specifying that the test is no longer needed. We're now going to expand that further with this unit test. We're going to write unit test for this convert to kilometers per hour. We pass in the miles per hour and then convert it to kilometers per hour. We're passing in miles per hour speeds and the expected kilometers per hour as part of this inline data attributes. So we call the speed conversion helper convert to kilometers per hour method and we pass in the miles per hour. Now we say if the act is over 160, we're not interested in the test, so we can call Assert.Skip and pass in a message saying the act is more than 160 kph. Otherwise, we're going to write an assert equal, so the expected kilometers an hour should match up when we call the convert to kilometers per hour method. There are a number of other skip assert methods in xUnit 3. So we can call Assert.SkipWhen, and we can specify if the act is over 160, we can skip the test and provide a message. So we'll copy and paste the message that we added before. And the other Assert.Skip method that you can use is xSkipUnless. So this will skip the test if this condition is false. So we'll change that to less than equal to 160. And only if that is false will it skip the test and provide us an error message. So we can run these test methods. So we've got a number of them are passing, and the ones that have been skipped, we've got the warning symbol next to them. There are more ways to skip tests, which we'll show you shortly. But before that, if you want to use xUnit 3, you need to install the templates. xUnit 3 is available on .NET 8 and later. To install the templates, we call .NET space new space install space xUnit.33.templates. Now to create a new xUnit 3 project in the CLI, we call .NET space new space xUnit 3. And that has been created. To create a new xUnit 3 project in Visual Studio, we go to Visual Studio and we go to create a new project. We do a search for xUnit v3. And we're after the xUnit test project with C#, so that's this one. We can give it a name, so we'll call it xUnit 3. Leave the solution name as it is. Go to next, select the framework that we wish to use, and then create the project. Just a reminder that when you subscribe, you'll be notified for any new .NET videos that are released on this channel. We've created a new xUnit 3 project, but how do we update an existing xUnit 2 project to version 3. To update an existing xUnit project, we need to go into the csproj file. We need to remove the xUnit project, and the reason being is that we need to replace it with xUnit.33. So we do that, we go into Tools, New Get Package Manager, and Manage Packages for Solution. We go to the Browse section, and we do a search for xUnit.v3. Install that into our xUnit test project. And we also need to update the xUnit.runner.visual studio package. So we'll update that to the latest stable version. So we're upgraded to xUnit 3 and we can still see that our tests are running. Back to the new features in xUnit 3, and we'll continue with other ways of skipping tests. In this test method, if we're running in debug, then we'll set the debug property to true, otherwise we'll set it to false. Now we can mark this method as a test method by using the fact attribute. We can set the skip property to give it a name, so we'll say in debug. And a new property for the fact and theory attributes is skipWhen. So we specify the name of the property, which is debug. So this will skip this test if debug is set to true. The opposite to that is skipUnless. So we specify that, so if debug is false, then it will skip the test. So it will skip unless debug is true. We'll update the message on that. You can also specify that property in a separate class. So we set up this test properties class. We say if it's debug, we set the debug mode property to true, otherwise we set it to false. So we'll mark this test with a fact attribute. we'll add a skip message of in debug. We'll call the skip when, so this will get the property name, debug mode. So if we were to run this now, it would look for the property in the test class, which we haven't got. It's actually called debug. So what we need to do is we can call this new attribute called skip type, and we specify the type of expression and then the class name, which is test properties. So now when it will look at the debug mode, it will look in the test properties class, which is in here. So that's showing our skip tests and our pass tests. When you download the code example for this tutorial, you'll be able to try out the new features mentioned in this video. Go to roundthecode.com/examples to do that. There's also a link for it in the YouTube video description. xUnit 3 has introduced the theory data row class, which represents a single row of theory data and allows you to provide strongly typed parameters in your theory test. In this test method, we specified this test data field. It's a type of theory data with 2 decimals within it. It's in an I enumerable, and it's going to represent this test method where we've got the miles per hour and expected kilometers per hour. So the first index is going to be the miles per hour, and the second index is going to be the expected kilometers per hour. If we want to add this to this test, we call the member data attribute, and we specify the name of the field, which is test data. So that represents that. And that's given us passing test, meaning it must have worked. There's also the matrix theory data class. With this, we specified a decimal and an integer. The decimal represents the miles per hour in this test, and the integer represents the attempts. We specified it in an array, so we're going to test it with 50 miles an hour and 100, and we're going to do 3 attempts with it. The way this works is that it will go through each one in sequence. So it will start with 50 miles per hour, and it will run each test with attempt 1, 2, and 3, and then it will do the same with 100. And the way that we add this to this test is we call member data, and we just call the name of the field, which is test data. With this test, if the attempt is equal or bigger to 3, it will skip the test. Otherwise, it will run this test here. That gives us 6 separate tests, with each speed having 3 attempts. On attempt 3, it skips the test. Otherwise, it runs the test and they pass. A new TestContext class has been added, which allows you to get information of the current state of your test pipeline. We can use it in any test method by calling TestContext.current. Here we're adding a warning. We're going to put a breakpoint after it and see what we can get out of the TestContext.current. So inside TestContext.current, we get many properties including the statuses of how the classes are running, also some of the classes, and any warnings that we wish to add, including the one that we just added for that test. There's some of the new xUnit 3 features, and if you want to learn more about xUnit, watch this video next. To download the code example for this tutorial, go to roundthecode.com/examples. There's also a link for it in the YouTube video description. Leave any comments that you have about xUnit 3, and I'll see you on the next video.